Hi, guys. My name is Chad Forsey, and I'm going to present a news brief today on the subject of the crisis in children and youth services. Now, children and youth services is otherwise known as the child welfare system. In some states, it's called CPS. Here in Pennsylvania, most jurisdictions I'm familiar with, we call it Children and Youth Services, or CYS. In any event, what I'm going to do is connect some of the principles related to a very tragic story about failure of the Children and Youth Services agencies in Pennsylvania to our current module on management and organization theory. So, as I'm sure many of you know, the CYS system exposes many failings by our government to actually apply management theory. It's a cautionary tale of burnout, redundancy, and inefficiency at the expense of children. But that's why I chose it. I was attracted to public service in the first place because I wanted to confront difficult challenges, and this is a big one. So let me set the stage by sharing a story referenced by our former Pennsylvania Auditor General, Eugene DePasquale, whose 2018 report called The State of the Child has become the basis for much of our current discussions in Harrisburg, our state capital, around children and youth services reform. So I'm referencing here a York Daily Record article, which is included in the references at the end of this presentation. I'll also be referencing the Harrisburg Patriot News article. They did some very good coverage on this story, also cited at the end of the presentation in references. So Ciara Meier is the subject of our story today. She died a few years ago after 8 years of failed efforts by two county children and youth services agencies to protect her. So in 2008, Dauphin County and Perry County CYS agencies took up the case of a 4-year-old girl named Ciara Meier. Her abuse and neglect case was open for 8 years, during which time her family's drug and alcohol dependency resulted in periodic removal from the home. So she was taken out of the home, she was placed into care with other family members or foster care, but was always removed and returned to her parents' transient, abusive, and neglect-filled lifestyle, in which she assumed much of the actual parenting role herself. She was often sick. This is in part due to the terrible sanitary conditions in which she lived. She was frequently truant from school, but her teachers found her to be a very good student nonetheless. She worked hard to maintain a B average, and many called her a model student. The never-ending pattern of CPS caseworker or CYS caseworker intervention, removal of Ciara from the home, placement, and then finally reunification back into the same unsafe environment was exacerbated by high staff turnover in both county agencies. And it continued without pause until things came to a head in January of 2016 when a Perry County constable arrived at the home to serve an eviction notice. Ciara's father was high on drugs and agitated, and he pointed a gun at the door, which the constable was aware of and refused to let the constable in. Ciara, ever the substitute parent, ran to the door to mediate the situation. She appealed for calm. However, the constable feared for his life, pulled out his gun and fired. The bullet went through her father's arm into Ciara's chest and killed her instantly. She was 11 years old. Sadly, most of the patterns evidenced in Ciara's interaction with county CYS are commonplace in county agencies throughout Pennsylvania and the nation itself. The York Daily Record article from 2021 calls the county CYS agency a sinking ship, and I found more articles like this than I have practical space to reference today. What's my point? That the CYS child welfare system is failing to protect children like Ciara Meier, and it's been in crisis for some time. So let's take a look at some key figures in management theory, see how their ideas relate to child welfare and specifically to child welfare management theory. We're going to start out with Herbert Simon. And Herbert Simon had a critique of the lack of scholarship and in the subject of public administration management. And we can see that if you apply his criticisms one level down, that administrative theory and child welfare scholarship is also very, very weak. Much as Simon criticized the void of scholarship in his day, and the author Meier says we still have a long way to go to understand efficiency or effectiveness in the public administration field, Huang writes in the International Journal of Public Administration that child welfare administrators do not have a scholarly methodology for grasping the concepts of accountability and leadership in the field. He notes that the system operates under conflicting rules and court rulings, and frontline workers don't know if they are there to tally reports, conduct interventions, or simply avoid legal errors. Administrators are just as frustrated in the system. They report that accountability management is something that they try to appreciate, but simply it's just not taught. So point one in our discussion today, there's a real lack of research and application of theory in the field of CYS management and administration. Let's see if we can fix that, starting with Adam Smith. So Adam Smith, as I'm sure many know, was and is considered the father of economics. We read about his ideas in the readings in our module this week, and I'd like to focus in particular on his concept of division of labor. So Adam Smith, as examined by Chandra in the Journal of Economic Issues, believed that the skill, dexterity, and judgments of the individual should be unleashed by utilizing their abilities in specific rather than general ways. Division of labor, among other things, means that not everybody should be doing everything. However, unlike criminal justice, where the police investigate and the DAs prosecute, CYS caseworkers do it all. They investigate, they decide whether to remove children from the home pending judicial oversight, and they decide when to put them back into the home. This is a very poor division of labor. CYS administrators oversee these decisions, but they are not allowed to place certain caseworkers on investigative duty and others on decision duty. And this simply flies in the face of management/organization theory. The literature refers to the dilemma of too many tasks in the hands of one person as a boundary conflict, resulting in functional task uncertainty, followed by strategic task uncertainty. The lack of direction from administrators is a key problem in this vicious cycle, writes Van Veelen et al. In the Journal of Public Child Welfare. More organizational research in the field is called for once again. And another problem is training and education. So a review of the literature on this topic includes Robert Agranoff's 1991 journal article discussing on-the-job training for human services. It's in Public Administration Review, and he prefers it. Van Buren and Edelenbos, writing in Public Personnel Management, argue for both theory and hands-on training, but they note that individuals ask for hands-on training by name and that it adds and aids greatly in practical application. Sadly, many CYS job candidates ask for on-the-job training but are turned down. Some are sent into the field to conduct investigations alone, and they're inexperienced, as Long and Chung report in the Journal of Research and Social Work, and they add that most neither have degrees in social work nor any prior experience in child welfare. The lack of on-the-job training available for CYS trainees needs to be addressed. The high turnover that we read about in C.R. Meyer's case, those two county agencies, is due at least in part to lack of proper hands-on training. Transitioning now to the subject of collaboration via networks, it's clear from the literature that managers generally continue to focus on their work within a given hierarchy rather than via network resources. As Robert Agranoff writes in the second journal article I've cited by Mr. Agranoff today, that this is simply a matter of hierarchy rather than network resources. Now, there is an exception to this that I found in the literature. The nurse-family partnership model facilitated through child welfare administrative level networking decisions provides a rare exception in child welfare. As Eckenrode et al. Write, the journal Child Maltreatment, the informal networks established between hospital nurses and CYS offices have facilitated voluntary partnerships between mother and nurse that can prevent the patterns of child abuse and neglect long before they start. This is perhaps the first ray of hope that we have seen in our discussion today, and it brings us to this question. Are the gaps in child welfare management and organizational theory as significant a barrier to improvements in the system as they seem? Those who say yes note that not just a basic management theory is missing, a basic structural theory of child welfare itself is lacking, they say, and unsupported by evidence-based rigor. In other words, the current theory is not adding up. For example, Font et al., writing in American Sociological Review, found that there are no clear lags between a young adult raised in a dysfunctional yet preserved family under continuous CYS services and a young adult coming out of foster care. In fact, in some cases, the young adult coming out of foster care outperforms her cohort and a family preservation system by more than 7 out of 10 indicators, which contradicts the underlying doctrine of child welfare that family preservation is always superior to child removal from the home. And look, this belief ultimately is what led to C.R. Meyer's placement back into the home and finally her death. If the fundamental assumptions of child welfare are incorrect, how can piecemeal theory advances right the ship? Which leads me to my second question. However, there are those who believe that the gaps can be bridged by empowering caseworkers and administrators through regulatory waivers. A growing number of researchers in child welfare management theory who believe that the CYS system can be saved are citing recent research showing how management level memorandums of understanding, or MOUs, between CYS agencies, police departments, and even family court judges can increase formal networks and interdisciplinary teams, which is a concept that Pennsylvania, by the way, has recently implemented statewide, and that this unleashes the power of creative partnering and prevents future preventable deaths, like CRs. The study I am citing here is from Cross et al., writing in the journal Child Maltreatment. Such teams can even lead to family-centered practice as opposed to family preservation as an abstract ideal. See Michaelopoulos et al. In the journal Research on Social Work Practice. This approach echoes Adam Smith's early modern belief that individuals thusly empowered and divided, that brings us back to where we started, back to the beginning, these individuals who are empowered and divided by niche skill are jointly able to produce more than the sum of their numbers would otherwise suggest. If this is true in management and organizational theory, perhaps it can also be true in child welfare management theory. Thank you so much for your time and attention to this topic. Best of luck to all of you in our public administration program. References follow.